What's popping, my lily pops? Thank you so much for tuning back into my channel. You're tuned in for episode 6 of the all natural lily pop growth series, and this week we're talking about how to grow back those edges. Yes, we're talking about that hair in the front. Growing them back, believe it or not, is only half of the battle. Maintaining them once they're there, trust me, you have to make sure you have the keys for that as well. My lily pops, let's pop off. There could be a wide array of reasons why your edges are missing right now. It could be a protective style gone wrong, so sewing that was too tight, or perhaps even box braids or twists that snatched your hair out. It could also be underlying health issues causing it, such as an iron deficiency. If you have a milder form of alopecia, if you have more intense alopecia, if you're balding, things of that nature. In my case, the way that my edges got snatched was actually from box braids gone wrong. It wasn't snatched in the sense that there was like no hair on my hairline, but my edges were definitely thinned out. I was not feeling it at the time. So one of the first things that I did when I was dealing with this with my edges was start to consume more ginger into my diet. Ginger is something that I use a lot of the time to season food items when cooking. So I had everything covered on that end, but I just started being more intentional about incorporating it. Just in case you don't know, ginger does great with promoting blood circulation. And as you know, blood circulation on the scalp is how you get everything moving and is what promotes hair growth. I've shared a lot of treatments on this channel that I've incorporated ginger into, and while applying the ginger directly to your hair one way or another is a great way to make sure that you're getting the benefits from it. Of course, eating it, you're always going to see more benefits and you're likely to see those benefits quicker. This one is going to get you guys a little bit, but I actually stopped using headscarves and bonnets for a good amount of time when I was dealing with the breakage on my edges. Hear me out for a second. So things that have bands and that create tension on your edges area when you're already struggling are definitely a no-go. And a lot of people always look at headscarves and bonnets as keep your hair protected. You don't want the cotton fibers from a traditional pillowcase or from different things pulling on your hair, so always keep it covered. And while that is true, you also have to think about the tension that those things provide on your scalp. When you have a headscarf, you put that baby on, and again, you do this motion. All the tension is created here to an area that is already irritable and dealing with a lot because your edges have been pulled out. Also, the same thing applies for a bonnet, but a bonnet is less harsh because you simply just plop it on and there's not really a lot of tension, but still is creating some friction there. So I stopped using those two items altogether and I heavily just relied on a satin pillowcase, and that is how I slept. I do understand that when it comes to preserving a hairstyle, this can be a bit more difficult, but it was a sacrifice that I was willing to make to get my edges back. The third thing that you need to do to grow your edges back is to stop wearing puffs. Stop wearing hairstyles that pull your hair upwards and create tension. I know, it seems pretty obvious, but a lot of the time when people think about high tension hairstyles, they always pair that with wearing weave. And don't get me wrong, I understand how weave in the form of bundles definitely gives you a lot of tension because, you know, they're pulling on the string. If you have a wig that is sewn on, there's tension around this area as well, especially if it's a lace front and all of that stuff. I definitely get it. But there's also a way to apply unnecessary tension to your hair with your natural hair. The most common way comes in the form of puffs because you're always pulling your hair upwards in this motion. Buns as well, it can become very toxic. A quick sidebar while we're on this topic, I've seen a lot of people turn what is supposed to be a low tension hairstyle into actually high tension. So it's very vital that we touch on this fairly quickly. When you think about like flat twists and two-strand twists, you think, you know, you're not applying that much tension to your hair, and I definitely get it. But if you're pulling the twist taut, meaning that you're like being very intentional about it. You don't have a loose grip. That is also applying a lot of tension. When you're doing a flat twist and you're gripping your hair and you're snatching every piece of your edges in, you're creating more of an issue for yourself. So please leave the low tension hairstyles in the low tension category by being very gentle with your hair. Number 4, for how you can grow your edges back, you have to stop using gel and you have to stop using edge control. I know some people might cringe by this, but honestly, I don't really find this to be a difficult ask, because personally, when it comes to our type 4 hair, I really don't think there are a lot of gels or edge control that really hold our hair in the first place. For the most part, we're plastering these things on, and in a second, those edges are popping back out. You're dealing with frizz, you're dealing with all of these things. So just toss it out of the regimen, especially when you're trying to grow your edges back. When you put edge control and gel on your hair, what do you proceed to do afterwards? I'll wait. You go for that brush, or if you have that good old faithful toothbrush and you want to slick those babies up, you want to start doing pinwheels and all these designs with your edges, or even if you're not as dramatic with the edge designs, you just slick it upwards. The second you put those things on and then you grab a brush, you are creating unnecessary tension on your hair. So keep those out of the hair regimen in the time being. Just let your hair naturally flow. The natural look altogether, I'm talking about not slick, not slayed, is definitely cute as well. Just embrace that. And this brings me into tip number 5, and that is to ditch the brushes as well. This one pairs with tip number 4. Brushes have extremely hard bristles that pull on your hair. Honestly, even when I'm not dealing with issues with my edges, the tension from a brush is something that I think about all of the time, especially if you're breaking a brush in, meaning that the brush is new. The bristles are extremely hard unless you are intentionally finding a soft brush. I recommend just stopping the brushing altogether. Just use your hands. Listen, I always say these are the best hair tools that you have when it comes to detangling, when it comes to styling. Use your hands. The next tip is just to commit to laying off of the protected styles. Honestly, it's the box braids, it's the twist, and especially the full lace wigs or just the full sew-ins altogether. When I was dealing with my edges issues, one of the mistakes that I made was just to cover my hair up altogether. A lot of people are tempted to do that. If you don't look at the problem, it gets your mind off of the fact that the problem exists. But I definitely want to encourage you to not do this and to face the problem head on, since you're dealing with edges that are no longer. Okay? The full sewings and the full weaves and things of that nature, especially if you're applying glue adhesive to your edge line, or whether you think that you're putting it on your forehead, not on your edges, trust me, it's going to end up there and you're putting yourself at risk. I do understand that a lot of people use different solutions, water, or even take the weave off when they're steaming the bathroom to reduce the amount of tension and the tugging, but the reality is that it is still happening. This one is more common, and I mentioned it in a prior video, but that is heavily emphasizing the use of scalp massages, and the go-to in the case that your edges are gone is that Jamaican black castor oil. The reason that I want to emphasize the black castor oil is because you have to realize, once a specific type of product starts to get a lot of hype and jazz around it, there starts to become more variations of the product. So just use the traditional Jamaican black castor oil. I know the specific brand that is well known has started doing things like incorporating Jamaican black castor oil with coconut oil and all of these other things. Please just keep it simple. Another tip is to mix a bit of your favorite deep conditioner, whether you make that in the form of a DIY. Personally, for me, I love avocado deep conditioners. But use your favorite deep conditioner and put a bit of a protein treatment in there. The reason that I'm suggesting this is because for a lot of people, there's still a faint bit of edges that are there, but the hair is extremely weak, and when it begins to grow, it just falls out. So you also want to make sure that you're strengthening the hair on your hairline. And one of the most effective ways to do that is make sure that you're getting a moisture and strengthening balance. So the mixture of primarily deep conditioner with a bit of an ingredient or a bit of an actual intensive protein treatment mixed into that will do really well for you. My final tip that I touched on a bit earlier is to definitely don't be afraid to go to your doctor. The reality is that there are some people, no matter what you try to do, that your edges are not going to completely come in either the way that you would like it to, or they will not come in altogether. I'm personally one of those people. I like to try to do the most that I possibly can at home to see what works well, and then I'll be like, okay, let me elevate this to a doctor at this point. It's not the best practice, but I definitely understand wanting to explore your options before you go out and spend the increased amount of money with a healthcare professional. Another thing that I will say on this note is that please understand that things do not happen overnight. I typically, as a rule of thumb, like to try things for 30 days before I deem that something does not work for me. With that being said, if you want to create a predefined time period that you would try something for, then go on to figure out whether it works for you. I encourage you to do that just so that you can say you had a good trial run with it. Don't think that after one use, your edges are going to magically come in. Don't think that as soon as you stop, wearing a headscarf for a while, that your edges are going to be full now. That's not what I'm saying, but definitely try it for an extended period of time, 3 weeks to a month, in my opinion. The only time you would not want to do that is if you're having adverse effects. So like if you're using the Jamaican black castor oil and your skin starts to break out, of course, stop using it then. But if your reason to stop using it is that, oh, I used it for 2 weeks and nothing happened, think again. Let's be patient. Let's grow our hair. Let me know about your experience down in the comments. I definitely always want to encourage you guys, if you guys have some tips that have worked well for you, to please share that with the Lily Pop community. This is a forum about sharing and learning. I definitely don't get offended if people say like, oh, that didn't work for me, or this worked for me in the comments. This is more so about learning, as long as we do it in a respectful way. My Lily Pops, you know the vibes. Pop off.